Please. Thank you. Hold up. Clicker. Like, that's a big introduction now that I feel like I have to justify the fact that I've been around for a while, but it was not osmosis. I wish.
She didn't have a choice. She had to come with me. Welcome, everyone. Good morning, and thank you for being here. For a little bit of background, I've been involved in SEPTED work for over 30 years. Greg Seville and I founded the ICA back in 1996, and we've been working hard and trying to bring the right people together to help us progress. I want to thank you for your question because it's actually almost better than a paid segue into what we're going to talk about today. Because we're going to talk past the tools and past the doing, and actually it's a little bit of a call to action and a bit of a pitch for membership and support of the ICA and to where we grow to, where we evolve to. And you'll hear some specifics, but the ICA has been in existence for now 28 years, and you've heard us called the SEPTED family, and we are. Some of the best relationships in my professional career have come out of the ICA and SEPTED conferences. But like any big family, that has some challenges. It's like a Christmas dinner that can sometimes be a little bit raucous. And we want to talk about how do we, and Latin America is one of our biggest opportunities to take the next evolutionary step for the organization into professionalizing and such. We've done baby steps, but we want to talk a little bit about that. And I will say, and we joked about trying to, whether we should actually apologize for it, but one of Megan's incredible abilities as a researcher is to dig into the processes and into a target for what that research and work is meant to accomplish. And so you're going to hear a little bit about where she envisions us going because
I'll be nice.
She has grown up around this. So one of our challenges, and just to set the tone for what we're going to talk about, is the fact, and again, your question is so relevant. The SEPTED, to a certain extent, is in our heads. There is tons of material out there, but there is very little follow-up research and certainly very little academic level research that allow us to quantify to our funders, our governments, our community partners, that this works. And understand, I'm not questioning whether it works. I will be the first to stand in front of any group of people and show how it works. But I can't do that empirically. And that, as an organization and as a field, and that is a whole other presentation and debate, whether we call ourselves a field, because we are an amalgamation of several fields. We build the toolkit. So at the moment, and continually, our problem is that SEPTED is very much in here and in professional journals and things like that, but not peer-reviewed, not academic level work. The other challenge we have is that because of the nature of SEPTED, it's very context-driven, which then creates a challenge because we can't just have a checklist of achieving specific strategies as the way to do something or the accomplishment. So that becomes a challenge around the world, and where it has been hurting us is that training in individual regions becomes incredibly, I want to say, ill-informed. And we're not going to point anywhere, but we have a problem. I can speak to North American training, where we have regions that are still stuck in 25-year-old SEPTED 1, level 1 training people to say, this is SEPTED. You are now set to go out and save the world. In no other academic field would you train with information that's 30 years old. But we see that happening. So that is a challenge. And we're not here to just shoot at us, shoot at the ICA. We are going to talk about some of the things that the association has been doing to help step us forward. But as I said, this is very much a call to action. And one of the things that we've seen with MACA and through Latin America is that because it is a developing realm for SEPTED, we have the ability to start setting those standards And because of your drive through Latin America around research, we have the chance to reset that. Because as anyone that's in academia knows, and Megan will speak to this a little bit, that's a tough nut to crack if you're not already in that family. And so within North America and within parts of Europe, we have already now been around for so long that we're the crazy uncle that everyone wants to talk to for a little while, but we can't prove why we need to be at the table. And that becomes the challenge. So.
Yeah. So we have a paper in process right now that goes over a lot of these things in way more depth, because 15 minutes is not enough time to do even one of these criticisms justice in a way that doesn't imply a lot more negativity than what should be there. Because when we're looking at a lot of these things, we see them fall into two very sort of specific categories, and a lot of what Barry already talked about. So on one side, we see the idea of experts being parachuted in, and that idea of first-generation septed, where it does become very forced into the idea of defensible space and target hardening, and a lot of things that, while still very applicable, doesn't really understand the nuances around not just septed in general right now, but the idea of reflexivity in research and reflexivity in society. So we see the fact that septed and septech practitioners, all of you, are all incredibly, incredibly individualistic and also very contextual in yourselves, just like we are in communities. And the ability to be able to stay within that field and stay within those communities is where we see a lot of things lacking, because we're not able to stay with our projects long-term all the time, right? Things end up happening, we run out of funding, we move on to the next thing. And so being able to keep that expert within the community is really a massive challenge. And then on the other side, we see a lot more on the academic sphere, where Barry was talking about, that we do have, and we are starting to see, even more incredible academics coming out. We have a whole bunch in the room today. But we're stuck in this cyclical pattern of white papers and being as a professional society where there's nothing wrong with that. But when we're trying to move into something that creates a little more academic rigor, validity, and a lot of those other things, that it has to be a 50-50, and we can't just force things into becoming academically rigorous without the support there from the society and from the rest of the academic community. And so we can't also do that. Another layer of this is that septed is about community. And so we can't actively fall fully into just academia without engaging community. But there's a sweet spot here. And that sweet spot is something that we haven't really found yet. We see great examples of it. We see great examples with Mecca and with Matea and all of the work that all of you are doing, where we engage community and we build that in as a reflexive process of our research. But at the same time, we don't have it wholeheartedly across the entire field. And we need those people to be able to engage and hold our hand while we're going through the rocky river that is academia and getting published and making that credibility. And it's not something that we can do easily. And I think there's a lot more there when you're looking at, to use Barry as an example, because I'm allowed to pick on him. I'll get sass for it later, don't
She
worry.
will pay for that.
Yeah. But when we look at someone who's been in the field for, 30 years? Yeah, a long time. Let's go with 28 years, right? We'll give you a year past when septed was around. We see you as an incredible person who has been in the field and has been published and has done lots of things, but the academic background it's not quite there, right? And so being able to have someone go in and be able to bolster this academic pedagogy is something that we need, and we are getting there when we develop the ideas of third generation septed and what does that mean academically. But now that I've made fun of you.
And it does make sense. It's something that we as an organization have failed with, because we have some of the top academic community within our organization in our leadership positions. And yet we haven't found a way, or perhaps prioritize how we move that forward. And that's a little bit of our call to action within our field and within the association that we're trying to bring forward. So we're looking at this, and for fear of sounding a little bit like Randy and a Guardians of the Galaxy type approach, we're looking at how we take that next step to attract more academics, to help people like myself that don't live in academia step that forward. Because we have used for almost 30 years the excuse that, well, funding doesn't go past the end of a project. But yet, for any of us that work within the nonprofit realm, we all know how rigorous reporting is for funding within a nonprofit realm. So I would argue that we haven't made the right business case on the projects we're doing to ensure that there is accurate follow-up to show return on the dollar. Right? There's the political rub to this. These are the things that we're working towards. Now, we promised each other we weren't going to end on a negative, so let's talk about what the association is doing and where we need some help. For example, one of the starting points being, we started actually, in the very beginning, we started with a journal. And it was meant to be, and help me, I'm gonna term this wrong, it was meant to be a peer-reviewed journal that we simply didn't have the resources and the time to follow through with. Well, that is being reinvigorated, and we're moving that forward. Again, we have a resources problem because everybody is a volunteer. This is not a slide I expect you to read, but it does demonstrate that we have, for 27 years, been trying to baby step forward. So everything that you see in green, the association is doing, has done, at least in initial stages. But what you'll notice is that there are a couple of areas that are glaring by their lack of action or strategies for us. You know, we have not done true establishment of academic programs. We have not cracked that. What's interesting to me, and I would say it as a question for later, I'll buy the coffee, is we have our program. SEPTED is introduced or trained within many academic institutions, many, many, many. But yet we haven't gone past it being a one-off program. So I would be curious as to why. Like why is that not, whether it's a piece of urban planning, architecture, engineering, why haven't we been able to get over that edge? The other piece that is, I think, a potential future role for the ICA is how are we evaluating? How are we providing academics with real information on projects to prove that this works? Right? And that truly, there's the layman's view, because I know there's many more pieces to that. But we as a professional association, we're doing individual practitioner certification that I feel is the best in the world, competency-based, context-based. It allows it to fit the practitioner in the region, but still maintain a base level of what we expect you to know and apply. We're now doing certification of courses and workshops and training programs. So we're there at a professional level. We just need to crack that academic piece. So those stand out to me as two areas that we as an organization, and for yourselves as professionals, at some point we're all accountable for our work. So if we can't prove that, other than a good feeling and the people are happy afterwards for a little while, why are we here? And very rhetorical question, because I've been doing this for over 30 years and I stand behind everything we've done. But at some point, we need to move past that family Christmas dinner and perhaps break the family up and move into the institutional view that takes a whole bunch of that emotion out of it. So that's all we have. We just wanted to start this off and try not to offend all of the people that she's grown up around. Because the work, we're not questioning the work. What we are trying to do is empower and encourage all of you that many of you, this is new, and we love the opportunity being in Latin America. For me, very selfishly, is that we're in uncharted territory to you. We can bring a whole bunch of things that we know work but weren't the best way to do it, perhaps, into areas where we have smart people that can say, well, how about we do this? Or here's what my government or funders are looking for. How do we frame that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we do look at a lot of these things, and I would suggest to a lot of people here, is we're all Renaissance persons. We're all people that are good at SEPTED, we're good at psychology, sociology, so on and so forth, add a label here, is being able to really understand and embrace that multifaceted approach, but look at how we do that in a more systemic and systematic way. And so it's not on the slides, it's not anywhere here, but being able to look at how do we really system map what SEPTED looks like, and what the ICA looks like, and what